So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality.
Welcome to the Buff Show podcast from Appeals Law Group. You can visit these appellate lawyers at appealslawgroup.com. How Scott and Magaro got your back. Also, we're brought to you in conjunction with the American Adversaries radio show. You can listen to the show live at 5 p.m. Eastern every Sunday through Friday at AmericanAdversaries.com. Or if you're in Central Florida, over the airwaves at AM 950 or FM 94.9 FM. Bigger, stronger, faster, bolder.
And more important to listen to than ever before.
That's right. I'm the Buff Man, Matt Buff, and I'm joined by the host of the American Adversaries radio show, philosopher and political mad scientist, the one, the only, Christopher Hart.
How you doing, Buff? Good to see you again.
Oh, good to see you too. And what's great about this week's podcast is we've in the last episode we talked about the inflation of the numbers to start this whole thing.
Yeah.
How it went from 1 million, 2 million deaths. Simple Armageddon, the movie Outbreak, down to now 60,000. In a few days it'll be less.
Well,
now,
that actually was the deflation of the numbers. Today we're going to talk about the inflation of the numbers.
And why do we have to have the inflation? Because we got to justify all the regulations we just put into place.
The draconian regulations, as according to Attorney General Bill Barr.
Yes, indeed. And I want to get
to
that
a little bit shortly.
Yes, indeed. But I want you guys to check out this clip. It's my clip of the week, all right? The press briefings, and governors across the country are doing daily press briefings. The White House task force is doing their briefings. And Dr. Deborah Birx said the most interesting thing to me this week. Take a look at this full clip.
I just want for Dr. Fauci or Dr. Birx. Can you talk about your concerns about deaths being misreported by coronavirus because of either lack of testing or standards for how they're characterized?
So I think in this country, we've taken a very liberal approach to mortality. And I think the reporting here has been pretty straightforward over the last 5 to 6 weeks. Prior to that, when there wasn't testing in January and February, that's a very different situation and unknown. There are other countries that if you had a pre-existing condition, and let's say the virus caused you to go to the ICU and then have a heart or kidney problem, some countries are recording that as a heart issue or a kidney issue and not a COVID-19 death. Right now, we're still recording it, and the great thing about having forms that come in and a form that has the ability to mark it as COVID-19 infection, the intent is right now that if someone dies with COVID-19, we are counting that.
Okay, there you go, Chris. She admitted that the numbers are, quote unquote, very liberal.
Oh boy, are they.
Some people that are already dying of cancer and they pass away, they were going to die anyway, and it's unfortunate and it's terrible and sad, but then they test positive for corona, for China virus, they get added to the death ticker. And she even said in that clip, other countries are simply doing COVID deaths. For some reason, we have to do more. You have to justify this massive economic shutdown.
Yeah.
This thing has a 98% cure rate. And the biggest thing you have to look for, and I said this on social media on somebody's post, when you see a death reported as linked or associated or in conjunction with COVID, that means, folks, there's an underlying issue that was already the problem.
All right,
Put on their selling hats, Chris. They have to sell this.
All right. First of all, the 98% cure rate, and by the way, it's a little bit higher than that, but we'll take the 98%. The 98% cure rate has to do with people who have been actively diagnosed and seeking treatment for the disease. Has nothing to do with we know it's at least hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who have contracted the disease, sought no test, sought no treatment. So the 98% cure rate is misleading in that sense because you think that 98% of the people who get the disease will survive it. No. In fact, it's far higher than that. It's well over 99%, probably close to 99.9%.
See, I'm undershooting it. I'm helping out Dr. Burks.
Well, in a way you are, because once again, it's all about inflating, and as the numbers deflate, they have to inflate them. All right, because the numbers did deflate, because as we spoke before, they were all about worst case scenarios, which very seldom, if ever, happen. But that's what we've been basing all of our draconian measures on, worst case scenarios. And so as reality slammed up against worst case scenarios, they had to constantly lower them down. You know, right now we're supposedly in peak week in New York and around the country, including here in Orlando, Florida. And by the way, as of this past Sunday, okay, it's Good Friday. As of this past Sunday, we were told peak week here in Florida wasn't going to be until May the 5th. Okay? Today is April the 10th. That's
almost a month before.
Oh, yeah. And so we were supposed to plan on sitting in our homes well past May the 5th. Okay? So this is all about prolonging the misery. Okay, so what the CDC on March the 24th, we had as a guest on our show this past week on Wednesday. You can go to our archive at AmericanAdversaries.com and find it, as well as I believe you created a page on our website for Douglas Golden. He is a journalist with Western Journal. You can go to westernjournal.com and find all of his recent work, all of his work having to do with COVID-19 and the CDC guidelines. And the CDC guidelines are listed in there, and they're basically this. First of all, as Matt said, if you think that the COVID-19 had any contributing cause or assume that it had any cause or any even contributing cause to the death, it is to be classified as COVID-19. And by the way, the supporting documentary evidence that you would normally have to provide for such a conclusion is no longer required. Thank you very much. So they are encouraging the numbers of COVID-19 deaths to be inflated. Now, we also know that this has happened elsewhere. In Italy, for instance, their director of health over there, and as Douglas Golden describes on the show, they've got a pretty chaotic government and have had probably ever since Mussolini. But anyway, they predict that estimate that the actual cause of death, COVID-19, and all those thousands of deaths that they had in Italy that we've been scared by, could be as low as 12%. 12%.
Let that sink in for a second, because we sat through weeks of news saying we're basing this on Italy. Italy is a disaster zone. Italy is a lot of those cases were in nursing homes and people with underlying conditions. And now you're saying, Chris, 12% of those might actually be specifically related to China virus.
COVID-19. And there's and I can't verify this, but there's anecdotal evidence here in this country. People going, for instance, a man supposedly was going to get a COVID-19 test, was killed in a car accident on the way. So they did it post-mortem. He tested positive. So his cause of death was listed as COVID-19.
Not the Buick that hit him.
Or whatever. And there was another instance where a child, a baby has died from COVID-19.
That was the New York story. Big fake news story.
Big fake news. The child died of a tragic accident. But because post-mortem there was a positive test, COVID-19 death. Had nothing to do with the child's death. And as we know, children survive this. And so this was meant to instill the thought in you, maybe children don't survive this. And so that's what that was for. By the way, the CDC never was set up. It was never part of their purpose in their existence to test and track pandemics. It's not their job to test for or track pandemics. That's not what they were set up to do. Oddly enough, you would think maybe they would, because they're there to investigate diseases and provide information to decision makers on diseases and treatments and the things. But they were never set up to do that. So we're relying on an agency that is issuing guidelines that, as how did she put it? Very liberal.
Very liberally. Bad choice of words.
And doesn't very liberal strike you as exactly the solutions that we have been handed all along? We'll have to take that up later. But think about it. Everything that we've been doing as a result of this virus has been a liberal, talking about politically speaking, a
Yes.
liberal solution, even right down to these trillions of dollars of government giveaways. I mean, what the hell is that?
Well, I have to put a final note on this as we head into the close of this segment. Chris just outlined, and we outlined how, you know, the CDC and the government has to put a spin on this thing, and the death ticker is not what you think it is. The media, of course, is helping them right along because we had a fake news story from CBS of a crying nurse. Turns out she was fired months ago and just did a phony video. CBS, a national news agency.
So what else is new?
They also did a photo from a busy hospital and said it was in New York. It wasn't in New York. It was another country.
Yeah. This is all
let me ask you
bogus
this.
stuff. We're going to have to move on. So
The
let's
fake
take us up
news
in the next one.
Goes well beyond this.
It does indeed.
We could go on and on, but we have to
We're gonna
keep
go on.
moving. So I want to tell you, it's been great broadcasting. You know, Hal Scott and Magaro, the appellate
Great studios
lawyers
here. Great
have
studios.
given us a great studio. If you're ever in legal trouble and you need an appeal, and if you were wrongly convicted, you got to check out appealslawgroup.com. And of course, don't forget to listen to Chris and the fellas at the American Adversaries radio show every Sunday through Friday, live at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on AmericanAdversaries.com or AM 950 if you're here in Central Florida, or FM 94.9. Don't forget to like and share and hit that notification bell. And we'll see you soon. Hey, don't forget, be smart out there.